Hey, this is Metal Mike, and welcome to the newest Metal for Life column. In my mind, I think of this column as a suspended animation because we have a bunch of examples that have suspended chords that resolve into another chord. All right, check this out. Let me show you all about it. All right, let me show you this example. We start with two-note shapes that resolve against a pedal tone on the A string. This reminds me a little bit of like a George Lynch style riff when you have this typical sort of like a 80s Dawkins song. But when you play it correctly, you could completely make the sound a little bit more today if you want. All right, check this out. This is how it happens. Right, so you want to make sure that when you hit the second chord in the succession, that you hit it just right. Right, because it's not a particularly great sound, but it's just cool enough so you could get away with it if you hit it one time. Okay, so you know the beginning. So you have basically like a D power chord, and you could think of this many ways. I basically just think of a D with a root back one, or you could think of as an A major chord. That's your third chord in this progression. Right? You basically keep the steady rhythm on the A string again. And to finish off this little particular area, you have a rhythm on your right hand that changes a little bit. It's more of a gallop type thing with a quick change of notes on your fourth string, right? So you're basically outlining in some way an E power chord, really. Right? Okay. Second part of the riff, you have the same exact up front. And then you move into a quick B and C power chord change. Right? So it's a quick galloping on your A string while hitting the chord. So it's like, that's the tail end of it. Right here, you have a series of pull-off between B and D on the A string and G and B flat on the E string. So you have, depending how you want to articulate, but the tail end goes. Okay, our next riff is another example of two-note chords that you can morph into a real melodic section by just moving one or two notes in them around. This example has different chords on the 5th and 6th string, and they move sort of in a quick succession melodically, okay? Okay, let me show you what I'm doing. Beginning of the riff is an E chord, and this is the melodic part, the fingering of it. So it's basically an E chord with, you add in a pinky for some sort of a 6th chord, I suppose. But I really don't think of it as a theory. I think of it as more melodically. To me, that's part in E. Right? And now as you're playing it, what happens to a lot of metal guitar players, for us, is that we concentrate on the left hand a lot. And we sort of don't think a whole lot about exactly what our right hand is doing. And for riffs like this, in order to properly play riffs like that, the right hand is actually the key part of it. The left hand is just moving around the chords with 1 or 2 notes changed, but the execution of the music with your right hand is really where this riff starts to shine. So you'll see that every time when I hit the chord, I strike that chord with my picking hand, right? So you have this. So I don't want to say that I'm wailing on a string, but I'm definitely accenting it. So the chord gets a nice, strong, clear sound. And in between when I hit that chord, I mute in this case, the A string, so you have a nice, tight, driving rhythm. You hear that, right? So you have, when the rhythm happens, it's up and down, alternate picking, muted, and I strike the chords themselves, so you have this nice contrast, which makes the riff sound great. And once you get this type of rhythm down on your right hand, it's pretty easy because same thing exact happens to the next chord. So the next chord in this progression is a C power chord. And you'll see that I'm expanding this chord by adding a pinking in it, adding a 6th degree. Remember, to play that, my right hand stays exactly the same. So this is how it sounds. Right, so I move the melodic part of it. Right, so the key is before you hammer back on with your 2nd finger, you're going to play this sort of like a quick 4th power chord in F. So make sure that sounds nice and clear. The good news is you're pretty much playing exactly same thing on the 6th string 5th fret. Melodically, we don't go back to here anymore. It just stays, check this out, it stays like this. So I just basically variate these things as I feel like it to have some sort of a melody. I don't want to repeat the motifs all the time, so the riff becomes very predictable. So I just move these guys around, and I create little different melodies within the riff. So after you get these little chord changes done with, we are moving to the next part of the riff, which is basically in F sharp. And now the riff takes a little bit of a change now. I love these type of riffs when you go from like a fast to almost like a halftime feel, from like quick 16 notes to like an 8-note type rhythm. So let me show you first what the left hand is doing. And this reminds me a little bit of a Megadeth type riff when you have a lot of chromatic ascending lines on the 6th string intertwined with the melody between the strings 5 and 4. Okay, so the next part goes like this. Okay, so 5th and 6th string. Now the same exact thing happens, except your bottom note now, instead of being an F sharp, becomes a G. It's got that typical killer heavy metal sound that we all love. right? They're all the old Kick Diamond records right now. And it moves into my what I call the Dave Mustaine note. That's sort of like a Megadeth signature note right here. So when we go here, I change the melody. So just get your ear to something different. And I resolve it by moving to the A note. Right, it's got a nice, very cool. When I play this D, you could play it as a single note or a chord. Okay, our next example is a single note etude that has a lot of open strings and it's alternate picked. It's great stuff to practice. Let me show this to you. Check it out. All right, let me show you what is happening in this riff. It's an interesting example because the alternate picking is what drives this riff, but there's also a lot of open string time which must be executed correctly, otherwise the riff is just going to start sounding messy, right? Basic idea is that you always have two notes on your D string, and you have an additional melody note on a G string that the riff bounces off of. And this is how the first part starts. Very quick second, when you play the note on a G string, you pull it off, and you also hear the open D string. When you guys check out the tablature, you'll see what I'm talking about. And this creates this cool sound in between the notes that's hard to pick up unless you see it. See, I didn't even get that right. I actually played the second part of the lick, which is this. Moving on. So I'm basically playing like a chord shapes, you know, like little arpeggios with open strings. And that's it. Those are your open string parts. And then it ends with a, in some ways, I guess it could be considered a scale. Reminds me of like a Randy Rhoads sound. Starts on the 7th position. Moving up the octave. It's actually scaled that Paul Gilbert made quiet, a lot of use of in his licks. So when you listen to him play, look for those kind of patterns.